You know, when winter hits, that urge to help the little birds in your yard, it's a great one. But what if I told you that some of the most common ways we try to help can actually do more harm than good? So let's dive in and make sure our good intentions are actually leading to great outcomes for our feathered friends.
And it's a question we really have to ask, because sometimes our kindness can backfire. We're going to walk through 5 common mistakes, and I'm going to give you the inside scoop so you can go from just being a casual bird watcher to becoming a true bird protector.
Okay, first up, the bread trap. And this one really comes from a good place, right? You see a shivering bird, you toss out some bread. We've all seen it happen. Maybe we've even done it ourselves. But this thing that seems so harmless, well, experienced birders have a name for it. Here's the problem. You think you're giving them a life-saving meal, but what's really happening? They're getting a stomach full of, well, nothing. See, bread has pretty much zero nutritional value for them. It makes them feel full, but it robs them of the essential fats and proteins they desperately need to generate body heat and survive a freezing night. I love this analogy. It's just perfect. A marathon runner isn't going to get very far on cotton candy, and a bird can't survive the winter on bread. It's nothing but empty calories. So, the big takeaway here? Just skip the bread. Opt for high-fat foods like suet, black oil sunflower seeds, or peanuts instead. That's the good stuff.
So now that we know what to feed them, let's talk about how we're serving it. And that brings us to mistake number 2, a sneaky hazard I call the silent killer. And yeah, this one has everything to do with your bird feeder.
You know, it's so easy to just set up a feeder and kind of forget about it, but that is a huge risk. All that winter moisture, the snow, the rain, it turns your feeder into a perfect breeding ground for nasty stuff like mold and even salmonella. So when all those birds gather in one spot, that dirty feeder becomes a literal super spreader event for bird diseases.
So, how do we fix this? Easy, but it's totally non-negotiable. You've got to have a strict cleaning protocol. About every 2 weeks, you need to take those feeders down and give them a good scrub with a diluted bleach solution. Just remember this, a clean feeder is every bit as important as a full one.
All right, we've covered safe food. Now let's talk about safe water. Because birds need to drink in the winter just as much as they need to eat, but a frozen bird bath is obviously a big problem. And that leads us to mistake number 3, a really dangerous shortcut some people try called the toxic melt. So you might have heard this myth, this hack, that adding a little salt to the bird bath will keep it from freezing. Please, whatever you do, never do this. Salt is straight up poison for birds. Their tiny little kidneys just can't handle it. Drinking salt water leads to dehydration, kidney failure, and it's a really awful way for them to go. The good news is there are 2 great, totally safe ways to handle this. 1, you can get a bird bath heater. Just make sure it's plugged into a GFCI outlet for safety. Or you can go totally low tech. Just bring out a shallow dish of fresh, clean water every day. Simple as that. Okay, so they've got safe food and safe water. Now let's talk about location, location, location. Seriously, where you put your feeder is absolutely critical. Get it wrong, and you could accidentally be setting up what is basically a predator's dining room.
So birds naturally want some cover nearby, right? A place to dart into if a hawk flies over. But here's the trap. If you put that feeder right next to a thick bush or a hedge, you've just created the perfect hiding spot for a neighborhood cat to launch an ambush. So what's the magic number? The sweet spot? It's about 10 feet. Putting your feeder about 10 feet away from that cover creates this kind of Goldilocks zone. It's close enough for them to make a fast escape, but it's far enough that a cat can't just pounce out of nowhere without being seen first. Okay, so getting that distance from cover right is a huge deal, but that's only half the puzzle when it comes to placement. And that leads us to our final and honestly, maybe the most tragic mistake, the window strike. Now this is where things get really interesting and kind of counterintuitive. Most of us would naturally put a feeder maybe 5 to 10 feet from our window. It makes sense for viewing, right? Well, it turns out that is the absolute worst place you can put it. It's the danger zone. Why? Because it gives a spooked bird just enough space to get up to a deadly speed before it hits the glass. So the solution is pretty simple. You just have to stick to one of 2 safe zones. Option 1, put the feeder really close to the window, like within 3 feet. That way, if a bird gets startled, it can't build up any speed before it bumps the glass. Option 2, put it far away, more than 30 feet out. This gives them plenty of room to see the house and the window as a solid object they need to fly around. And there you have it. The 5 biggest, most common mistakes to avoid.
And now that you know about them, you're not just watching birds anymore. You're actually helping them. You're ready to start birding like a pro.
Seriously, with this knowledge, you're not just a passive bystander anymore. You are an active, informed guardian for your local birds. You are a bird protector.
All right, let's run through your new protector checklist. First, give them high-fat foods for real energy, not that useless bread. Second, clean those feeders every 2 weeks. No super spreader events in your yard. Third, always offer fresh, salt-free water. Fourth, find that 10-foot Goldilocks zone away from cover to keep them safe from predators. And finally, keep those feeders out of the window danger zone.
You know, by following these simple rules, we can all make a massive difference for the birds in our neighborhoods. It really is a shared responsibility, but it's such a rewarding one. Let's keep our feathered neighbors safe this winter.